How to make a small vegetable garden at home. Whether you're looking for ways to save money, eat healthier, or simply enjoy working the land, a small vegetable garden is a great idea. And it's not impossible to grow your own vegetable garden with high yields. You can do quite a lot with a small amount of space, so there's no need to have a huge backyard. All that's required is some patience and smart tactics to get the most out of your garden space. It definitely helps if you enjoy gardening, but you might learn to enjoy it for reaping actual benefits. Today, we'll dig into some tips and tricks to plan the vegetable gardening of your dreams. So stay tuned. Before we share what we believe is the finest step-by-step strategy for quickly establishing a low-budget vegetable garden, it's good to talk about choosing the ideal site for a new garden. The sun is the key. Full sun. That is, you'll have to find a location that receives at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day. Yep, the sun is lower in the winter and higher in the summer, so if you're planning a garden in the early spring, consider the amount of sunlight that will reach the location later in the growing season. Simply do your best and choose the sunniest spot available. Then comes the water. Vegetables require regular watering. Otherwise, they won't fill out and some, like tomatoes, will crack open if suddenly plumped up with water after struggling without it for a while. You can't always rely on rain. A drip irrigation system is a big benefit for a vegetable garden if you have the funds. The new component systems are actually fairly simple to install and far less expensive than most people believe. You'll also save money on water as it flows directly to the plant's roots, resulting in reduced evaporation. Even a simple soaker hose is preferable to a sprinkler system, which wets the foliage and makes plants susceptible to blights and mildews. If you don't want to use drip irrigation, place your vegetable garden near a water source. If you don't have to pull the hose or watering can very far, you'll be more inclined to water. Here, you must not forget one thing. That is, the spot you've selected for gardening drains well and doesn't stay wet. If you have poorly drained soil where water pools, plant veggies in a raised bed or raised row for improved drainage. Wet soil means wet roots, which can turn into rotted roots. If you have rocky soil, till it and remove the rocks, as they will interfere with root growth and make for weaker plants. And the most significant of all is the nutrient-rich soil. Vegetables need soil rich in organic matter. Fertile soil is essential for the growth of all plants. But it's especially vital for vegetable growth because soil quality affects even the taste. Soil health is the reason why wine from the same grape variety can differ by region and why some areas grow hotter peppers than others. Time for a bonus tip here. Avoid areas where high winds may knock over your young plants or prevent pollinators from doing their job. Nor do you want to plant in a location that receives too much foot traffic or floods readily. Plant in a location that would make Goldilocks smile. Somewhere that's just right. Now, how big should a new vegetable garden be? After you have your site chosen, think about how big to make your new garden. When considering how to start a vegetable garden, you should also think about how much time you have to care for it. The technique we're sharing today does require some maintenance. All vegetable gardens do, after all. But if you do it as we recommend, it won't be a ton of maintenance. We suggest a 10 by 10 foot or 12 by 12 foot garden to start, at most. That gives you enough room to grow some staple crops without getting too far in over your head. Start smaller if you live alone, or you're worried it will be too much work. You can always make it bigger in subsequent years. It doesn't have to be a perfect square either, any shape will do. You should mark off the area with string or rope. You can also map out different quadrants for different vegetables. A point to be noted here. Whatever the size of your garden, make sure you have walkways every 4 feet or so that allows you to access your plants to weed and harvest. Simply ensure that you can easily reach the center of the row or bed without stepping on the soil. Let's now get to choosing vegetables. As a beginner, start by choosing easy vegetables that are also productive. However, it would also be wise to check with your state's cooperative extension service to find out what plants grow best in your area. That is, vegetables that prefer low temperatures, for example, may struggle if you live in an area with exceptionally hot weather. Here are some pointers to help you choose the right veggies for your garden. You should choose what you and your family like to eat. That is, don't bother planting Brussels sprouts if no one loves them. However, if your children adore green beans, devote extra time and effort to raising a large crop of beans. You should be realistic about how many vegetables your family will eat. Be careful not to overplant, as this will only strain your ability to care for a large number of plants, though you could always give excess veggies away to friends, relatives, or the local soup kitchen. You should consider the availability of veggies at your grocery store. Maybe you want to grow tomatillos instead of cabbage or carrots, which are readily available everywhere. Also, certain veggies are so far superior when homegrown, it's almost a shame not to consider them. We're thinking of garden lettuce and tomatoes. Moreover, homegrown herbs are far less expensive than grocery store herbs. Try to use high-quality seeds. Seed packages are less expensive than individual plants, but if the seeds don't germinate, your money and time are squandered. A few extra cents spent in the spring on seeds for the next year will pay off in larger yields at harvest. Moreover, you should be prepared to take care of your plants throughout the growing season, and try to mix in flowers such as marigolds, which discourages pests, attracts pollinators, and adds some color. Now, where and when to plant? The procedure could be simple if you're only raising 2 or 3 tomato plants. However, if you intend to cultivate a full garden, you must consider where will each plant end up, and when should each veggie be planted? Moving on to a few guidelines for arranging your veggies. Waiting for seeds to sprout in a vegetable garden can be frustrating. It will leave you wondering whether you've done it right or not. A great way to alleviate this problem is by starting seedlings indoors before warm weather is here for good. You can monitor their progress to make sure they're growing properly. When the time comes, just transplant them out in the garden. Plus, vegetables are not all planted at the same time. Cool season vegetables like lettuce, broccoli, and peas thrive in the lower temperatures of early spring and fall. Tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers are warm season crops that aren't planted until the soil warms up in late spring and summer. And tall veggies such as pole beans on a trellis or sweet corn should be planted in the north side of the garden to avoid shading lower plants. If you do receive some shade in your garden, reserve it for little cool season vegetables. If shade is unavoidable in some portions of your garden, save those spaces for cool season vegetables that benefit from shadow as the weather heats up. Most veggies are annuals, planted each year. If you're planning on growing perennial crops such as asparagus, rhubarb, and some herbs, provide permanent locations or beds. Here, you must take into account that some crops mature swiftly and have a relatively limited harvest season, like radishes and bush beans. Other plants, such as tomatoes, take longer to grow, but produce for a longer period of time. Typically, the days to maturity are indicated on the seed packet. Moreover, plantings should be staggered. That is, you don't need to plant all of your lettuce seeds at once, or all that lettuce will need to be harvested at around the same time. Plantings should be at intervals by a few weeks to keep them coming. Now, when to plant what? Every region has a varied planting season that is mostly determined by the weather, and each vegetable has its own temperature preferences. You can make use of a gardening calendar customized to your local frost dates just by entering a zip code. Let's now check out how to take care of your new vegetable garden. Some problems require special solutions, but in general, you guys can follow some simple guidelines for regular maintenance. That is, stop weeds in their tracks by making frequent use of a hoe. Keep animals out by proper fencing above and beneath the soil as well. Deter destructive insects by hand-picking the larger ones. And try fighting fungal diseases by watering the soil, not the leaves of the plants. Well, starting a small vegetable garden may seem like a huge chore. By taking a methodical approach and keeping a few things in mind though, it's actually pretty easy. Your efforts will really pay off when your table is piled high with fresh, delicious vegetables later in the year. Well, that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. So, how much help was our content today? Is it easy for you now to plant your own customized vegetable garden? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, do leave us a like. For more of such interesting and informative stuff, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications as well. Time to sign off. Take care, folks. Goodbye.